I was 16 when I figured out what kind of son I was. Quick note: before we go further, share which city or country you're watching from. My name's Travis. I'm 42 now, living in Johnson City, Tennessee. But this all started when I was a teenager. Back when I still thought maybe, just maybe, my parents might see me for who I really was. I'd just gotten the letter. A full academic scholarship to Eastridge Academy, one of those prep-style high schools that only took a handful of new students a year. I remember holding that envelope like it weighed 10 pounds. I'd worked my ass off for it, studied every night, missed parties, stayed in on weekends. I figured finally they'd have to be proud. I walked through the door and handed it to my mom. She read it, smiled just a little, said something like, "Well, that's good, honey," and passed it to my dad. He nodded, barely looked up from the newspaper. Figures. You've always been book smart. That was it. Not 5 minutes later, Cole came stomping in the door, face red, shirt half untucked, and slammed his backpack on the floor. He'd been suspended. Got into a fight again, this time with a teacher trying to break it up. My mom gasped like someone had died. My dad stood up so fast the chair scraped loud against the tile. "Who said what to you?" Dad asked. "We'll fix this. This whole school's against you." By dinner, my scholarship letter was shoved to the corner of the table, under a stack of bills and junk mail. Meanwhile, they were already looking up tutors for Cole, calling the school board, and planning some kind of backyard get-together, so he doesn't feel alone right now. Nobody framed my letter. I did it myself, 2 weeks later, with a cheap frame from Walmart. A year after that, Cole busted a neighbor's car window with a BB gun. Told them it was an accident. They believed him. No punishment. No grounding. Just a brand new mountain bike with disc brakes and shocks to keep him busy. Maybe help his focus. I'd once gotten my phone taken for 3 weeks for sneaking out to a movie. That's when it started sinking in. Cole was the emotional project. I was the one they didn't have to worry about. At the time, I didn't have words for it. But looking back, that was the first time I really understood. Some kids are celebrated just for surviving their screw-ups. Others, like me, only get a nod when we're perfect. After that day, I stopped expecting much. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry or yell or ask why Cole got more. I just figured it out. Keep your head down, handle your business, and don't make waves. That's what they wanted from me. I stopped sharing wins. No more updates about test scores, essays, or awards. I'd come home, drop my backpack, and go straight to my room. Did my homework, made my own dinner half the time. If something broke, I fixed it. If I needed something, I found a way to earn it. At school, teachers called me dependable, quiet, low maintenance. I heard that phrase a lot growing up, sometimes from relatives at holidays. "Travis is the easy one," they'd say, while someone was trying to keep Cole from flipping the Monopoly board or screaming at Grandma. Looking back, I don't think my parents were cruel, but they were tired, distracted, and afraid Cole would fall apart if they didn't carry him through everything. Meanwhile, I was standing right there, just not loud enough to remind them. That's how the pattern set in. I learned early that being right didn't mean being heard, and working hard didn't mean getting noticed. In my house, reliability wasn't celebrated, it was expected. Like oxygen. You only notice it when it's gone. So I doubled down. I learned to solve problems without help. If I ran out of lunch money, I'd mow a lawn or fix someone's porch light for cash. If I got sick, I'd fake being fine and go to school anyway, because missing a test meant makeup work I'd have to figure out on my own. By the time I hit my 20s, I didn't lean on anybody. I worked jobs no one wanted, saved every dime, and kept things tight. People around me thought I was just cautious, but it was more than that. I knew how fast things could tilt the wrong way if you weren't ready. If you didn't have a backup plan, most folks don't see storms coming until the sky turns black. But I could feel the shift before the clouds even rolled in. It's because I'd spent my whole life watching people overreact to the wrong problems, while ignoring the ones right in front of them. And I told myself, the next time that happened, it wouldn't catch me off guard. That quiet confidence I'd built, it didn't come from my parents. It came from weekends in the mountains with Earl and June. My grandparents had this cabin tucked up near Elkmont, deep in the Smokies. Real wood walls, stone chimney, metal roof that sang every time it rained. You couldn't see another house from the porch. That place felt steady, like it had roots, like it wasn't going anywhere, no matter what was happening in the world. Every Friday afternoon, if my grades were good and I hadn't rocked the boat at home, my mom would drop me off after school. Earl would already be out back, fixing something. Porch rail loose, shed door off its hinges, gutters full of leaves. There was always something. He never said much, just handed me the right tool and nodded toward the problem. We'd spend hours side by side, cutting boards, sanding edges, replacing rotten planks. No music, no noise, just the rhythm of work and the way he'd say, "If you're gonna do it right." He said it once and expected you to remember. Cut once, measure twice. Don't half-ass it just to say it's done. He taught patience by never rushing me. He taught pride by letting me see what my hands had built. I learned how to split firewood straight down the grain, how to stack it tight so it dried right and didn't fall over by winter. No fancy equipment, just a maul, a wedge, and your own 2 arms. When the wood split clean and stood up sharp, he'd grunt and nod once. That was his version of good job. Evenings were June's territory. That kitchen smelled like warm bread and slow-cooked stew. She'd tie an old apron around me and put me to work, chopping carrots, peeling potatoes, stirring dough. She never barked instructions, just guided me gently, showing with her hands when words didn't quite do it. While things baked, she'd sit across from me with her tea and tell stories. How Earl proposed, how they built the cabin, how she used to hike these woods before there were marked trails. And she listened. That's what sticks with me most. She actually listened. I could tell her about school, friends, even stuff I didn't say out loud to anyone else. She never cut me off, never redirected the conversation back to Cole. She didn't treat my thoughts like distractions. They mattered to her. Sometimes I'd help her hang laundry on the line, and we'd talk about nothing special, just the clouds rolling in or what herbs were coming up in her garden. And somehow, those little talks filled in pieces of me that always felt missing at home. That cabin wasn't just a break from the chaos. It was the only place I felt like my presence made a difference, where I wasn't just useful, I was wanted. And the lessons they taught? They weren't loud, they weren't dramatic, but they stuck tighter than anything else I was getting from the world. Work hard, finish what you start, do it with care. And when someone trusts you enough to let you help, don't take it lightly. I didn't know it then, but those weekends were shaping more than just my skills. They were building the foundation I'd end up standing on when everything else got shaky. The older they got, the more I stayed. At first it was small stuff, picking up groceries, driving them to appointments when June's knees got too bad for the brake pedal. Earl had cataracts that made driving rough, though he never admitted it outright. He'd just hand me the keys and say, "You're faster anyway." They didn't ask for much, but they noticed everything. June would press $5 into my hand after mowing the yard, even though I never asked. Earl would leave a slice of pie on the table. No words, just a nod as I passed by with tools in my hand. Their thanks wasn't loud. It was quiet and steady, like the way the cabin creaked in the wind but never gave in. The more I helped, the more they let me in. Not just into their routines, but into their trust. One night stands out clear as day. Fire was crackling low in the stone hearth, and we'd just come in from moving a stack of old lumber. Earl insisted on organizing before it warped. June had already gone to bed. Earl poured 2 fingers of whiskey, slid one across to me, and stared into the flames like he was looking for something buried. "I ain't gonna sugarcoat it," he said, voice low and firm. "Your daddy doesn't know how to handle money, never did." I didn't say anything, just waited. "And your uncle?" He snorted. "He'd sell this land for beer money and a boat he don't need." I stared into the fire, jaw tight. He leaned forward on his knees, elbows out, glass in his hand like a weight. "This cabin, this land, it stays in the family, but it needs to stay in the right hands. You understand what I'm telling you?" I nodded. "Yes, sir, I do." He looked at me for a long time, just measuring. Me and June talked it through. The deed, the savings, everything tied to it. It's all going to you. Don't take that as a reward. It's responsibility. I won't mess it up. I know you won't. That's why. Those words hit different. Not warm, not flattering, heavy. That conversation never came up again, not directly, but I started paying attention, closer than before. The way my dad joked about all that land just sitting up there. How my uncle would glance at the hills and say, you know, some out-of-towners would pay top dollar for a spot like this. I'd hear them toss numbers around like it was a stock they were watching, not family soil. Every time someone brought up selling, Earl would shift the subject or head outside. June would stir her tea too long, lips tight. When they passed, it wasn't sudden. June 1st, peaceful, holding my hand one morning in late spring. Earl followed that fall, quieter than I thought possible for a man who used to stomp through leaves like they owed him money. At the will reading, nobody looked at me, not at first. The lawyer, Mr. Elmore, same man who had handled their papers for decades, read it out, plain and clear. Cabin, land, bank accounts, and personal assets all passed directly to me. Not split, not shared, mine alone. The silence in that room felt colder than the cabin had ever been. My father cleared his throat like he didn't hear it right. My uncle leaned back, arms crossed. Cole blinked twice and stared at the floor. But I didn't flinch. I had already heard it once, by the fire from the man who built it all. And I knew what it meant. It wasn't a gift. It was a line in the sand. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Barely a month after the will reading, I started seeing more of them. My parents, my uncle, even Cole. People who used to call the place too far out were suddenly dropping by with pies, beers, and fake smiles. What changed? Tourism. That's what. Some blogger wrote about hidden gems in the Smokies, and boom, real estate vultures started circling the mountains. Prices were climbing, rentals were booming. Everyone in town had a cousin or friend flipping cabins and cashing out. Suddenly, my inheritance wasn't sentimental. It was valuable. My parents showed up one Saturday morning with muffins and a real estate brochure folded under Dad's arm. I played dumb, poured coffee, kept my mouth shut. I already knew what was coming. Have you ever thought about what all this might be worth? My mom asked, glancing around like she'd never really seen the place before. It's worth a lot to me, I said flat. Dad chuckled like I was being naive. No, I mean real value, market value. Land's exploding out here. People are building retreats, lodges, vacation homes. There's real money on the table. They didn't say it outright. Not yet. They were still trying to plant the seed. Next week, my uncle showed up with a tape measure hanging off his belt. Walked the perimeter like he owned the place. Didn't even ask. He muttered to himself, 3 acres back here. Might even pass zoning for a couple cabins if you go septic. I followed him around, hands in my pockets, jaw tight. He never once asked what I wanted, just assumed it was already a done deal. The pressure wasn't loud. It was in the way my mom would say, we're just thinking ahead, baby, for the good of the whole family. Or the way my dad talked about lightening your load and sharing responsibility. That word kept coming up, share. Like I'd borrowed something we all had equal claim to. Like I hadn't sat through hospital visits, held my grandmother's hand, handled every damn appointment and chore while they called twice a year and sent birthday cards with nothing in them. Then came Cole. He showed up with some girl I'd never met, driving a brand new truck he definitely couldn't afford. We were on the porch, sun going down, crickets just starting up, and out of nowhere he said, so when we sell, I'm getting one of those Polaris side-by-sides. You seen the ones with the sound system built in? I didn't answer. He went on laughing. And I told Jess we're flying to Cancun. Screw driving. You only live once, right? He grinned like we were making some kind of shared plan. That's when it clicked, hard and permanent. They weren't treating the cabin like it had been entrusted to me. They saw it as communal property, some family asset we all got a slice of. Like I'd just been holding it in the meantime. They talked about it like it already had a for sale sign on it. Like it had never belonged to my grandparents in the first place. Or like that didn't mean a damn thing. There was no gratitude, no respect, just assumptions. They thought I'd roll over because I always had. The reliable one. The quiet one. The easy kid who never made trouble. But this wasn't a test score or a science fair ribbon. This was land with their names carved into the porch. This was a fireplace built stone by a man who trusted me, not them. And they were about to find out I'd learned something else in that cabin, how to stand my ground. So I made the call. A week after Cole's Cancun fantasy, I drove down the mountain, parked outside Elmore's office, and walked in without telling a soul. I was finally old enough to sign for myself. Mr. Elmore looked the same as always, neat, quiet, not big on small talk. He pulled out the manila folder before I even sat down. "Your grandfather was clear," he said, pushing the papers across the desk. This trust was his idea. He wanted the cabin, land, and attached assets locked down. I flipped through the pages, slow and steady, even though I already knew what was in there. Hyde walked me through the idea once before, back when I was 16, when Earl first started planning everything behind the scenes. "What happens if I go through with it?" I asked, not really needing the answer. Elmore folded his hands. "Then the property is legally and permanently protected. You become trustee, sole controller. But Travis, once you sign this, there's no turning back. And I won't lie to you, your family will not take it well." I nodded, jaw tight. "They already don't." He didn't argue, just slid a pen across the desk and said, "Then you need to be sure." But that was the problem. I wasn't sure, not completely. I drove back up to the cabin that evening and left the papers in the glove box. Spent the night walking through every room, every creaking board, an uneven nail carrying weight. I stood at the old kitchen counter where June used to knead bread, walked past Earl's toolbox, still lined up the way he liked it, sat on the porch and stared out at the ridge where he used to say the sun rested its bones before disappearing. I thought about birthdays, Christmas mornings, the time my dad lifted me onto his shoulders to hang lights off the roof, how Cole used to fall asleep on the couch next to me, watching reruns of The Dukes of Hazzard. I thought about family dinners where we all laughed like nothing was broken. I thought about how many times I almost believed we were normal. But the second I closed my eyes, all I could see was my uncle measuring land like it was up for auction. My father's hand on my shoulder, calling it our future. Cole dreaming up off-road toys with imaginary money. They didn't see what I saw. They never had. To them, this place was leverage. To me, it was a promise. I sat in front of the fireplace that night, same place Earl and I had the talk, and I didn't move until the sky started turning blue through the front window. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove back down, walked into Elmore's office, and didn't hesitate this time. "Let's lock it down," I said, pulling out the papers. He gave me one last look, just to be sure. "You understand the fallout this may cause?" "Already happening," I said. "This just makes it legal." I signed. Each signature was like sealing a door behind me. I felt it, tight in my chest, somewhere between relief and grief. I didn't smile, didn't cry, just stood up and shook Elmore's hand. "Your grandparents would be proud," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I didn't tell them about the trust. Not right away. Instead, I invited them to dinner. Just said I wanted everyone up at the cabin one evening. "Like old times," I told my mom. She jumped at it like it was a reunion, started asking what to bring. I told her I had it covered. They pulled in just before sunset. Cole was blasting music from his truck, like the entire forest needed to hear it. My dad stepped out carrying a six-pack and a grin. My mom had a casserole dish wrapped in foil like we were hosting a church potluck. My uncle showed up last, trailing behind them with that same tape measure clipped to his belt. I grilled steaks, made cornbread the way June used to, even lit the fire pit out back. I wanted it to feel normal, familiar, let them get comfortable. And they did, fast. We hadn't even finished eating before the conversation shifted. "You know, I was thinking," my dad said, leaning back in his chair, toothpick between his teeth. "If we updated the bathrooms and redid the kitchen, we could list this place for almost double what it'd get now." "Triple in the summer," my uncle added, "especially if we throw in some Wi-Fi and get a hot tub out back. People love that rustic but connected feel." Cole nodded, mouth full. "We could Airbnb the hell out of this place, like straight up. Do a theme, bare decor, Smoky Mountain vibes. Get some photos with a drone or whatever." He looked at me. "You got a drone?" I shook my head. "No worries," he said, already turning back to my dad. "I'll borrow Trent's. He's got that DJI thing. Shoots in 4K. They were off to the races, throwing around numbers like chips at a poker game, profit margins, cleaning fees, renovation timelines, financing options. Not once did anyone ask what I thought. Not one time did they pause and say, "Is that okay with you?" Because to them, it already was. My mom folded her napkin, set it on her plate, and said gently, "It's really about pulling together, Travis. Everyone benefits. Everyone contributes." "That's how families do it," my dad added, as if it was some ancient rule passed down in blood. I sat back and listened, hands folded, watching their faces in the firelight. They weren't scheming. That's what struck me most. They were confident, relaxed, like they'd already made the decision and were just filling me in. Cole started talking about a friend who designed rental websites. "He'll set it up cheap, like $200 or something. We can split the bookings through an app. I'll manage it since I'm online the most." I didn't say a word. Just watched his face light up as he mapped out the business plan in his head. Spending money that wasn't his, laying claim to land he never earned. My uncle got up and started pacing by the fire pit, gesturing toward the woods. Could probably clear that patch out and build a second cabin. Maybe do a wedding venue, too. People pay stupid money for mountain weddings. "Keep the main house in the family name," Dad said, "but form an LLC so we don't get hit with personal tax on the rental income." It was like I didn't exist, like I was the guest, not the owner. They used words like "we" and "ours" without blinking. That's when it clicked, so clear it was almost funny. They thought the land was already theirs, just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. The inheritance wasn't mine. It was a family asset I'd been babysitting. That night burned through every bit of doubt I still had. I cleaned up the dishes, thanked them for coming, walked them to their cars like a good host, smiled even, shook my uncle's hand, told Cole to drive safe. Then I went inside, locked the door, and sat at the kitchen table until the fire burned down to ash. They had no idea what was already in motion, and they were about to learn the hard way what happens when you assume you're entitled to something that never belonged to you in the first place. I was up before the sun that morning, like always. Coffee made, boots on, porch light still glowing over the railing. Earl and I replaced years ago. That's when I heard the engine. Not just a car, big diesel, heavy. Tires grinding up the gravel like it owned the road. I stepped out onto the porch, mug in hand, and watched a full-size moving truck roll up my drive like it had an invitation. Behind it came 2 SUVs, my parents in the first, Cole and my uncle in the second. No calls, no texts, no warning. The truck stopped right in front of the house. 2 guys hopped out, started yanking the rear door open before I even said a word. My dad stepped out, holding a clipboard. My mom followed, sunglasses on like it was a beach trip. Cole was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. My uncle, same as always, walking fast, pointing, barking quiet directions to the movers. I stayed where I was. "Morning, Travis," Dad said, casual, too casual. We figured it was time. "Time for what?" I asked, setting my coffee down on the porch rail. He held up the clipboard. "We've got the papers here, filed and signed, transfer agreement, ownership restructuring, new deed language. It's all handled." My uncle added, "You'll still have access, of course. We're not cutting you out. This just makes it easier, streamlines everything." My mom walked up like she thought she could soften it. "Sweetheart, don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's already done." I didn't say anything. Inside, the movers started hauling out boxes, my boxes, labeled, marked with Sharpie. They weren't just moving in, they were clearing me out. Cole walked up the steps with a smirk. "You didn't even pack. We got it started for you." He held up a cardboard box with my grandfather's old tool belt inside. That's when my truck pulled in, slow and quiet behind them. Mr. Elmore stepped out on the passenger side, suit and tie, briefcase in hand. A second door opened, and out came a sheriff's deputy. Conversation stopped. Everyone froze. The deputy adjusted his belt, walked up the porch steps, and said, "We're here on request from Mr. Elmore regarding possible fraudulent activity involving property deeds and unauthorized movers. You the current property owner, Travis Hayes?" "Yes, sir," I said. Elmore opened his briefcase, calm as ever. Travis is sole trustee of an irrevocable trust established by Earl and June Hayes. This cabin, the land, and all its assets are protected under that trust. These people have no legal claim. My dad laughed like it was some misunderstanding. That's not right. We filed the transfer. You filed forged documents, Elmore cut in. Notarized by someone who doesn't exist. We traced the seal. It's fake. My mom's face went pale. She turned to Cole. What did you sign? She asked, voice cracking. Cole looked confused, then panicked. I don't know. I thought Dad had it handled. He just told me to sign where the beneficiaries go. The deputy took the clipboard from my dad's hand, flipped through it, then looked up. This is trash. And unless you want charges, I suggest you step back and let these movers leave the premises. The movers didn't hesitate. They dropped the box Cole had handed them and started reloading the truck. My uncle tried to argue, but Elmore shut him down with one sentence. I'll be filing a restraining order by noon. Everything shifted. The confidence, the fake calm. It drained out of them like water through a sieve. Cole's smirk disappeared. My mom looked like she might throw up. My dad just stood there, eyes locked on the dirt, hands in his pockets, saying nothing. I didn't gloat, didn't shout, didn't ask why. I just watched as the movers packed up and drove off, taillights fading through the trees. They followed in silence, one SUV after another. By noon, the driveway was empty again. Not a footprint left, but mine. I picked up the tool belt, brushed the dust off the leather, and hung it back where it belonged, inside, by the door, right under Earl's photo. After the truck pulled away, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. A week later, Elmore filed the suit. Fraud, attempted seizure of property, falsifying legal documents. He had receipts. Traced the fake notary stamp to some third-rate online template Cole had doctored. My dad's signature was all over it. So was my uncle's. They tried to say it was a misunderstanding, but the emails told a different story. They'd planned it, step by step. They didn't think I'd defend it. They didn't think I could. The judge disagreed. At the hearing, my lawyer laid it all out. Timeline, trust structure, chain of custody. My family didn't stand a chance. The ruling came down hard. I kept everything, and they were ordered to pay legal fees, plus damages for attempted fraud. Financially, it crushed them. Dad lost part of his pension to cover it. My uncle had to sell his boat and one of his trucks. Cole's wages got garnished. I didn't ask for that outcome, but I didn't block it either. Choices have consequences. They made theirs. After that, everything went quiet. No calls, no messages, not even a birthday card from my mom, and she never missed one growing up. I didn't reach out either. What was there left to say? The silence hurt at first. I'd sit out on the porch some evenings and hear a car on the highway and wonder for half a second if it was them. It never was. But over time, that silence stopped feeling like a wound and started feeling like air. I threw myself into the cabin, repaired the gutters before the rains hit, re-stained the deck, cut wood, cleared brush, kept the place running just like Earl taught me. I didn't change much. No internet, no fancy upgrades. The land didn't need anything extra. It just needed someone who gave a damn. I kept their old routines alive. Sunday stew, fresh bread, clothes drying on the line. I even found June's old canning jars in the pantry and started learning the recipes she used to make. There was something grounding about it. Like even though they were gone, part of them was still here. I wasn't trying to live in the past. I just didn't want to pretend like any of it didn't matter. Because it did matter. Every lesson, every quiet afternoon, every nail I'd hammered beside Earl's thick, steady hands. That cabin became more than just shelter. It was recovery. It gave me the space to actually think, to feel everything I'd pushed down over the years. All the years I spent being the easy kid, the one who didn't need attention, who didn't get in the way, who didn't ask for fairness. I finally let myself feel angry about it. Sad, too, and weirdly proud. Living alone wasn't lonely, not there. Not with the wind moving through the trees and the porch creaking under my boots every morning. I found clarity in the quiet. I remembered who I was, why I was the one they trusted in the first place. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. I didn't need their permission. I didn't need their praise. I just needed peace. And that's exactly what the distance gave me. I was standing on the porch one morning, coffee in hand, watching the fog lift off the ridge. Everything was still damp from the night rain. The sky was just starting to glow, soft and gold behind the trees, the kind of quiet that settles deep in your chest. The land stretched out in front of me, untouched, steady, mine. I didn't need a sign or a ceremony to know it was final. The fight was behind me. The questions were gone. What was left was simple: acres of mountain land, this cabin, and a name on the deed that wasn't going anywhere. Protecting this place came at a cost. I lost people I grew up with, people who shared my blood but not my values, people who thought inheritance was just a shortcut to their next big buy. But this land didn't come with shortcuts. It came with responsibility, with choices that meant something, and I made mine. When you grow up being the one who never needed much, folks forget you can say no. They assume you'll bend because you always have. But some lines, once you cross them, don't fade. They harden. And mine did. I wasn't going to apologize for doing right by the people who trusted me, the ones who taught me patience and follow-through, and how to build something that lasts longer than money. Blood might connect you, but trust, that's earned. And once it's broken, there's no family tree strong enough to carry the weight. Some mornings, I still think about them, wonder if they ever felt sorry, or just sore they didn't win. But the truth is, I don't need an apology. I don't need closure. I've got peace, and that's more than I ever had when they were still calling. This cabin's not just a place I live. It's a line I held, a promise I kept, a life I chose without asking permission.